Hello and welcome to the Retro Odyssey podcast. I'm your host, Steven, along with my co-host, Matt. How's it going, Matt?
Not bad, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing all right. It's, you know, it's, it's, I know it's bad everywhere these days, but it's real rough in America. But that's why we have video games. So what have you been playing this month?
Honestly, I have mostly been playing some more Breath of the Wild. That's been my main game this month, aside from Guild Wars 2. After we did last episode, in which I had planned to just do the Great Plateau and then leave it at that, just to kind of like remind myself about the game. But yeah, I got back into it in a big way, and I've been on it non-stop. I did all 120 shrines. I've done all of the base game quests, and I started doing Champion's Ballad this afternoon, but I may not continue because I did 2 shrines and they were incredibly frustrating. It was an absolute pain in the arse. This one, which I think I must have had about 15 attempts on, and I eventually just rage quit, where there's a load of spikes everywhere and you've got to stop bits and try and navigate around these spikes. Really, really, really frustrating. So I may not continue with that, but the rest of the game, absolutely excellent. Not killed Ganon yet. What I might do is just quit out of Champion's Ballad and go kill Ganon and leave it at that. But yeah, I have been really, really enjoying that game because when I played it originally, as I mentioned, after killing Ganon, I didn't go back to it. So there's a lot of stuff that I never saw before. Like most of the quests I didn't see, and I didn't do like all the shrines last time either. So I've been able to like experience all of that. And yeah, it continues to be a really good game, and I'm hoping to get around to Tears of the Kingdom at some point as well.
Yeah, that's great. I had planned to go back and keep playing, and I just kind of never did. I was mostly just sticking with my Pokemon fixation, and then I had a little bit of Metroid in there. I played, I think, at least some of every Metroid game, focusing more on the Prime games since I hadn't finished those yet. But then it between us playing Knights of the Old Republic a couple of episodes ago and watching one of my favorite streamers play through it, I could not resist the call anymore and ended up getting heavy into Star Wars games. So I've been playing a bunch of those, primarily Knights of the Old Republic, Knights of the Old Republic 2, and then the Old Republic MMO, which is it. I know a lot of people don't like it, but I actually have found it as, as a game to play through by myself without worrying about groups or guilds or anything. I've actually found it to be pretty enjoyable. Now, I am still working on the original game, so those stories are, from what I understand, better than some of the later stories. But yeah, I've been having a good time with that.
So it is actually possible to solo most of the stuff then?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. In fact, there's sections of that game where there'll be like a shimmering wall that separates you from a story section, and if you go into that, if you're in a group, nobody else that is the same class in your group will be able to go in. They'll have to wait till you come out. It seems like with this game, as opposed to something like Final Fantasy XI, where they went back afterward and implemented a bunch of ways for you to play it solo. With the Old Republic, it seems like they built it with solo play in mind from the beginning, and it so far it works really well. I've dabbled with you know most of the characters, because the Old Republic also has the interesting system where you have the 3 levels of account: the free-to-play, subscriber, and then the preferred that's in the middle, which you get by either subscribing for at least 1 month or buying cartel coins from their cash shop. And I subbed for a month, and then basically I've made one character with all of the unlockable races that you get for subbing, because then you can keep those characters after the sub expires, and then unlock them permanently by completing their story. So yeah, that's been a lot of fun. One of these days, we will probably end up covering MMOs. Maybe not in this format of 2 specific games, but in a more general sense, just because it's a lot to ask to play an entire MMO in a couple of months.
Yeah, because I have played a fair amount. Like, I've put extensive amounts of time into World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy XIV, and Guild Wars 2, and I've put a bit of time into Elder Scrolls Online as well. And Neverwinter, I've put a few hours into that as well. So I do have experience with kind of like quite a few different games there.
Yeah, and my experience is with Final Fantasy XI, Final Fantasy XIV, Guild Wars 2, and the Old Republic, as well as some more niche ones. Like, my family and I tried out Flife back in the day. We already talked about Puzzle Pirates way back in the beginning. But yes, that's something that might be interesting to do at some point, is talk about MMOs from more of a high level viewpoint rather than going on the specific games.
Yeah, because a lot of them are kind of like within our time frame as well. Like World of Warcraft is like over 20 years old.
Yeah, World of Warcraft started in 2004. Final Fantasy XI was 2001. Guild Wars, I think, was around that same time, wasn't it?
Yeah, the first Guild Wars was quite early. Not technically an MMO, but kind of is. Guild Wars 2 came out in 2014.
Yeah,
I think somewhere around there.
And then, like, the Old Republic came out in 2011. And I mean, if we want to get technical, Final Fantasy XIV came out. I want to say 1.0 came out in like 2010, 2011. If we want to get technical, that also started in our time frame. Yeah, that's an interesting idea to discuss later. But anyway, aside from the KOTOR games and the Old Republic, I've dabbled with a bunch of my other Star Wars games. Played a little bit of the Dark Forces series, the Dark Forces Jedi Knight series, and I'll hop into the episode 1 racer, play a couple of tracks, and then stop. So yeah, that's all been fun. I have a lot of experience with Star Wars games. It's one of those topics that I've always reserved the right to drop in, and we just never done it because I've sprinkled the Star Wars games in.
Well, funnily enough, I've also been on a bit of a Star Wars kick. Not so much the games, but I binged the excellent second season of Andor. And then that led me into watching Rogue One again. So yeah, I've been all about Star Wars for the past few weeks.
Yeah, I need to go back and watch a lot of the stuff that I've missed. Unfortunately, part of that includes the Clone Wars cartoon, which there's a lot of.
Yeah, I was actually looking at all the stuff that they've got on Disney Plus, and I believe there are 7 seasons.
Yeah, yeah, there's a lot of it. It's from what I understand, it's all great, but there is a lot of it.
But I would 100% recommend Andor.
Yeah, I was very excited for Andor because I actually really liked Rogue One. Uh, I know a lot of Star Wars fans didn't like it, but I really enjoyed it, and I thought it was a lot of fun. Well, okay, it's a war movie, so not exactly fun, but
The series is definitely more on the adult side. Um, it gets quite dark and harrowing, like quite a lot of the time. So it can be a bit of a downer at times, but it is thoroughly excellent. It's really well done, and it is my personal favorite Star Wars media.
well, and that's the entire point of Rogue One in the first place was to tell a more base level Star Wars story. This is what it's like for the normal people, and as much as we don't really think about it, the Star Wars universe kind of sucks if you don't have access to the Force. Like, it is rough for the common person.
Yeah, and Andor really makes that hit home.
Yeah, so I can totally see why they would choose to go that direction. That's part of what made Rogue One good, was seeing the Star Wars universe from a different perspective. Actually, I watched a whole hour-long video about Rogue One the other day, about how it was much more reminiscent of the things like the Cold War and the the world's reaction to the nuclear bombs. It's very interesting. It's called The Myth That Rogue One Shattered. If you want to check it out.
Yeah, I'll have to have a look at that. The only thing that brings it down for me is the PS3 graphics Peter Cushing.
Oh yeah,
At least
I know.
At least he's only in 3 scenes, but still.
Yeah, like I know. I know the character technically needed to be there, but I feel like that could have been handled better. And I know they also have a de-aged Leia in there, but I mean Carrie Fisher was alive at that point, so she could presumably collaborate with that.
Yeah, but the CGI on her smile at the end is just
Yeah, for what I've heard, the de-aging that they do in the new Star Wars media has never been very good.
Which is weird because the Marvel stuff does it really well. When they had a de-aged Robert Downey Jr. and what's his name, Michael Douglas. Michael Douglas looked fantastic in the de-aged sections that he's done.
Well, and then Chris Evans, when they had him aged up for the end of Avengers Endgame, it made his mother cry because he looked exactly like her father. So I don't know. Maybe the people at Lucasfilm need to go borrow some people from Marvel. But anyway, yeah, that's most of my time has been taken up by Pokemon, Metroid, and Star Wars. Much in fitting with my typical gaming obsessions.
Yeah, and like I said, for me, it's mostly been Breath of the Wild. I have been on Guild Wars 2 a bit as well. There is actually the final patch for the current expansion coming out today. Literally in like 2 hours' time. Mm-hmm. The final expansion for Janthea Wilds is coming out. So as soon as we're done here, I'm going to be on that. Looking forward to that, definitely.
Yeah, the Old Republic actually just had a pretty significant patch come out that adds in what they call dynamic events, which are basically fates in Final Fantasy XIV. So the Old Republic now has access to the, group world events.
That's cool. It is interesting now you have dynamic events like that. Obviously, as you know, Guild Wars 2 does that quite a lot. Mm-hmm. And Final Fantasy XIV does kind of like a very similar kind of system as well. So it's nice. It makes the world feel lived in.
Yes.
There's always something going on.
It's also very common in Destiny, which I played a significant amount of. But Destiny has those big... they're intended to be multi-person, but a lot of people can handle them solo. But the big multi-person event that pops up every now and then, and it's, hey, defend this, or, kill all of these, or whatever. So, yeah, it's in a lot of the massively online games, and most of the time it's implemented well. I don't think I've seen any places where it's done poorly. I mean, other than specific ones in specific games that are not well received. I know there's some fates, and particularly fate chains in 14 that are not well liked.
Oh yeah, definitely. And World of Warcraft doesn't really have much going on in the world outside of like their static quests, which you can only do once.
Right.
But speaking of doing an MMO episode, I think we just have. We've gone like way off topic, I think. But
yeah, let's bring it back. So, if that's all we've played, do we have any noteworthy news to talk about? I know the big gaming thing right now is the Switch 2 release being imminent.
Yeah, it is. It is literally this week. It will be out by the time this episode goes out.
Yes.
I couldn't really care less, to be honest, myself. But I know a lot of people are excited for it.
I was excited. I was very when I watched the announcement live stream. I was sitting there with my wife, and I was just like, I was very excited for a lot of the things I was seeing, and then just all the stuff that's come out since then, and the fact that it is practically impossible to get a pre-order in. It just, my enthusiasm has gone down a lot. So I'm not going to be getting this one at launch like I did the Switch. I probably won't get it until next year at the earliest.
Yeah, I've not really got any reason to pick it up at this point. I'm assuming that we will finally be able to get a decent frame rate in Korok Forest in Breath of the Wild with it.
Maybe.
Because
you got to pay.
You port into Korok Forest and that frame rate just drops.
Yeah, but we got to pay a ridiculous amount to even access.
I'm definitely not going to get another £180 deal on this one.
Yeah. It also, like, there's some games that are getting an upgrade for free, but then obviously their big flagship ones are not. Which I'm honestly surprised that Pokemon are getting free updates, because, I mean, as much as I like Pokemon, the Pokemon Company is well known for, finding as many ways to make money as they can.
It turns out even they aren't as scummy as Nintendo.
I guess so. It hurts. I mean, we've talked about the Ryan and I's history with Nintendo several times, but like it hurts to see them go so hard into this crap, especially after seeing in the Wii U days where the head of the company takes a personal pay cut so people can keep their jobs. Like, it is very clearly a different company now than it was in 2014.
Well, yeah, I think after Satori died, clearly more business-minded people came on after him.
That's what really hurts, is that's part of the problem with some of these other companies, is you have people that only see video games as a business and not, the people that have, well, realistically, nowadays we should have the people like us that grew up with it making games, but instead you've got people that came from other industries and only see business are the ones making games. Or the ones publishing games, I should say. There's still good developers out there.
Yeah, and to be fair, there are still indie successes. I mean, look at Vampire Survivors.
Yeah. Vampire Survivors, I mean, heck, even things like Bloodstained, which are, it's kind of that weird middle ground, but still technically indie. From what I understand, it was very, very well received. I haven't played it myself. I have it, but
I didn't finish it, but I've played most of it.
And then you get things like Blasphemous and Dead Cells. There's a lot of good work being done. Oh, and then of course, Supergiant Games, with their absolutely no crunch mentality that gave us Hades. So it's not all negative. It's just mostly negative.
Wouldn't want to come across like an episode of the Jimquisition.
Yeah,
and just complain about the industry all day.
Yeah, like, make no mistake, I'm still buying Pokemon Legends ZA when it comes out later this year. I'm still buying Metroid Prime 4 when it comes out. But I am much more upset than I was at this time last year.
Yeah.
But yeah, is there anything else that we really need to cover?
We'll touch on it. I don't want to spend too long talking about this, but we did mention at the end of the last episode that I was really excited for the Oblivion remaster. Mm-hmm. It is out. I did pick it up. I did not know at the time that there was a boycott from the BDS on Microsoft because they have supplied AI technology to the Israeli military. So after I bought it, and you could say the damage is already done, but I've not actually been back to it. I played it for like 2 hours, then I didn't go back to it, so that's why I've not mentioned that here. That's also why I'm not really bringing up Doom Dark Ages. Obviously, it's everyone's personal choice if they want to follow these boycotts, but I will not be playing Oblivion at this point. I just wanted to bring that up because we did talk about it quite a lot at the end of the last episode.
I mean, I still haven't gone back to the version I do have. But yeah, I also have not played the new Oblivion, even though I can access it through Game Pass. Or the new Doom, for that matter, because I can also access that. Haven't touched them. I've been using my Xbox to play ancient LucasArts games. So that's all we'll say on that. So with that, we'll go ahead, take a quick break, and we will head into our topic for the day.
Okay.
Alright, so this episode, our topic is a favorite of many millennials, dinosaurs. Obviously, there's always been people interested in dinosaurs, but there was a very large boom in dinosaur interest after Jurassic Park in 1993.
What is your favorite dinosaur?
You know, I should have anticipated this question, and I absolutely didn't. Because what's funny is I don't particularly care about the raptors and the T-Rex and all the popular ones. I'm much more interested in things like the ankylosaur that have unique characteristics.
No one even knew what raptors were before Jurassic Park.
Yes.
My favourite is Stegosaurus. That was always my favourite as a kid. I don't know why.
Yeah. Stegosaurus is good. I would have to say something like an ankylosaur or, something else that's got just a weird thing that is unique. And it's like, okay, that developed for a reason. We always talk about, the human body must have this for some reason. Dinosaurs are the same way. Those unique, the head plates and all the, funky stuff, that all developed for a reason, and that's why I'm more interested in the more unique ones rather than the standards, because I'm much more curious about why certain characteristics developed as opposed to, it's got big teeth. Well, we all know why big teeth developed. But yeah, so in the spirit of enjoying some dinosaur goodness, we selected 2 games to cover and accidentally played 3 games. And I put this one solidly on Nintendo for their, suspect naming practices in the 90s.
Yes, because the first game we're going to talk about is Yoshi's Island, but it was meant to be Yoshi's Story. And I made a mistake. And I thought we were doing Yoshi's Island. So I played Yoshi's Island, and Stephen played Yoshi's Story. So, yeah, that happened.
Once again, I put this down to Nintendo and their naming conventions, because everything is way too similar.
But luckily you have previously played a bit of Yoshi's Island.
Yes.
So we can discuss that.
So, Yoshi's Island, also properly known as Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island, it's... I would say this one's just as well known as the original Mario World, and I don't know if it's gotten as much of the speedrunning aspect as some of the other Mario games, but it definitely has a strong following, and it was very well received at the time, and a lot of people always talk about it. So, did you have any history with Yoshi's Island prior to this?
None whatsoever. This is the very first time that I've actually played it. Okay.
See, I played it a tiny bit back when the SNES Online was added to the Switch. Just because I had always heard about it, I never had it, so I wanted to try it out. And I will say the game does deserve a lot of its reputation. It is a well-made game. Even some of the aspects of it that are frustrating and just not a good experience, those aspects were intentionally designed. It's a very good game, and it definitely deserves its reputation.
Yeah, it got rave reviews when it came out. Everyone kind of loved it when it came out. I was having a look at the reviews. because I wanted to see what I was missing. Everyone kind of loved it. I as a platforming game, it's not my kind of thing. I find just going back to Super Mario World, the two games that came out before it, Super Mario Brothers 3 and Super Mario World, those two games are kind of like, for me, the pinnacle of platforming. I do prefer Super Mario Brothers 3 to Super Mario World. That's just my personal preference, but they are both excellent platformers, like absolutely like precision perfect kind of like character control and stuff like that. And Yoshi's Island does kind of like build on a lot of the stuff that came in Super Mario World, but they added gimmicks to it. And I personally don't like the gimmicks. I can see why people love these games, and I didn't have a bad time with it. But you get hit, and Baby Mario jumps off Yoshi, and he's like, where? And you got to kind of like jump around and pick him back up again, which, when you're also trying to platform, is really, really frustrating. And you end up getting like hit again while trying to kind of like grab him, and I find that one mechanic kind of like ruins it a lot for me. I like the rest of the mechanics, the spitting eggs at enemies, stuff like that. You know, that's all perfectly fine. But just that getting hit thing really, really frustrated me quite a lot.
And like I alluded to, even that, you know, it's so annoying because it was designed to be that way. Because and we don't have to get deep into it, but the whole thing of a baby's cry is we've evolved to want to respond to a baby's cry. So it is one of the most annoying sounds in the world because, you know, we want to fix it immediately. And they used real baby crying sounds for this game, specifically to give you more of that sense of urgency. And yes, most of the result is it ends up annoying the player to no end, but it is effective, and it was designed with a specific goal in mind. And that, you know, that's one of the things I do give them credit for, is even the annoying parts are designed intentionally, and it's I think it's a well-made game.
It made me want to kick Mario off a cliff.
I mean, yes, that's the other result. It's what's funny is it kind of, I mean, this came out well before Super Mario 64, but it's reminiscent of the penguins from Super Mario 64, where you pick it up and it's wah 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 wah, but not exactly a baby's cry, so it's not as annoying. But a lot of people still threw them off cliffs. So one thing I did want to touch on with this game is the art style, because the Mario games had obviously the art style was changing as they were still developing, but this game has a very distinct style. It's got that it's often called a coloring book aesthetic, which I actually really like. It really gives this game a more distinct look that also ages well.
Yeah, it's a beautiful looking game.
And it kind of sets up, you know, now 20 years on, the Yoshi games all tend to have this look of crafted or, you know, drawn. Like you've got Yoshi's Woolly World, Yoshi's Crafted World, all the stuff that looks like it's made out of paper or craft materials, and those also look pretty good compared to the contemporaries.
Yeah, very, very, very nice to look at, definitely. It's just very visually appealing, really nicely presented. The music is solid as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm kind of in the same boat as you as far as gameplay. Like I personally prefer Mario World to Mario 3, but that's mostly because that's the one I grew up with. I didn't play Mario 3 until I was almost an adult. But the jumping in these games is much less controlled than I would like.
Yeah, he's a little bit slippy. Just a little bit.
It's interesting because that style of platforming was translated directly into Super Smash Brothers. So, when you're controlling Yoshi, it feels almost exactly like controlling him in Smash Brothers, and I don't like using him in Smash Brothers either. Because I prefer, like you said, the more precision platforming. It's just I don't particularly care for the Mario 2D platformer style. I prefer the Metroid style. But I prefer when the controls are tight and very, very precise.
Yeah, kind of like I've mentioned before, like one of my favorite platformers, and certainly my favorite Sonic game is Sonic 2 on Genesis. Now you can actually go like super fast on that. That's kind of like the whole point of the game. But you can also stop on a dime. You can just stop dead. There's no kind of like skidding. There's no slowing down animation.
Right.
You can just stop dead if you want to, and that really helps when you're trying to do precision platforming.
Right. So yeah, the gameplay is good, but it's not exactly our cup of tea in terms of control style. But there's that's it's a personal preference, not a knock on the quality of the game.
Yeah, the quality is still there. It's still very much a well-made game. Could have done without the 4-hour opening cutscene.
Yeah, that
goes on a long time.
It does, which is, as we'll see, was the style at the time.
So I played this on the Super Nintendo Mini. It's one of the games included on that, and the controls, like I said, aside from feeling kind of like a little bit slippy, they are still fairly tight. Jumping's decent. It's just that awkwardness of when you're getting hit that you have to then just frantically jump around to kind of like get Mario. But the attack stuff is really good. I mentioned that kind of like spitting out the eggs, stuff like that to defeat enemies. That's a really nice mechanic. That's really well implemented. Because you kind of like get a targeting reticle that goes up and down, and you just press your button, and that comes into kind of like the boss fights as well. I only ended up doing one boss fight because I didn't get like super far into the game, but the first boss fight, you just need to avoid his attacks and kind of like spit eggs, and it's perfectly decent, perfectly playable game. I just feel it could have done without that gimmick.
I do like the different fruits and other things that will change your abilities. That kind of goes well with the power-up system from Mario World, but gives it a unique flavor to Yoshi.
So I don't think I got far enough in to see different kind of abilities there.
I know the main one that I've heard about is the watermelons, where you can rapid fire shoot seeds, and then there's something you can eat to kind of have a flamethrower type of effect. And then there's all kind of power ups, but it's not just the ones from Mario World. It's things that are unique to this game and give it its own kind of feeling. Because unlike some modern design philosophies, it's not just another one. It's a whole. It's Mario World 2, but it's different enough to justify being its own game.
Yeah, kind of like how Diddy Kart Racing isn't just a reskinned Mario Kart 64. They Nintendo do kind of give unique qualities to a lot of these games that make them stand out as their own thing.
Well, and this even more so because this is a sequel. Now, most people forget about the Super Mario World 2 part, but it is technically a sequel. When I've played this, it's always been on the SNES Online through the Switch, and like all the Switch Online, I don't want to say products, but all of those, it functions perfectly well on there. Also comes with save states and the rewind feature. But even if you're not interested in shelling out for this game, which I imagine it's very expensive, it's definitely worth checking out if you have Switch Online or an SNES Mini or some way to access it.
Yeah, I would say definitely check it out. I didn't have a bad time with it. I just found it difficult because of that mechanic, which is why I didn't get particularly far. Luckily, the SNES Mini does have save states as well. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to get as far as I did. But that just it was getting too frustrating for me, having to chase Mario around all the time.
That seems odd. I'm seeing a bunch of listings in that $30 to $40 range.
That's not bad.
That. I would not have expected that. I mean, a complete inbox for $105. I thought that would have been way more expensive.
Maybe if it hadn't been put on Switch Online, it would be.
Maybe. I don't know. So, it's not prohibitively expensive to get it on the SNES if that's all you've got. I mean, we can briefly touch on Yoshi's Story, which I played. I got about halfway through it. It's not a very long game. It has a lot of the same gameplay, but it's more puzzle focused than platforming. So it's basically it's still kind of a 2D platformer, but the platforming is much simpler than in Yoshi's Island, and you can still eat enemies, turn them into eggs, throw eggs. The main goal of each level is to eat fruit, and you basically are eating, I think, 30 pieces of fruit to fill a border around the screen. And like Yoshi's Island, at the end of it, you get a score, and the high score is the kind of the main replay value here.
Yeah, I want to say, just going back briefly to Yoshi's Island, was that the first time that Nintendo implemented something like that to encourage replaying?
I don't believe so, because Super Mario World had scores. They just weren't as prominent.
But you didn't have the element in Super Mario World to kind of 100% each stage?
Right.
Like get all of the collectibles and coins in each stage?
That wasn't brought to Mario really until 64. So that may be the beginning of it for the series. But Yoshi's Story has less things to collect than Yoshi's Island. Like there's coins around. There's a fruit that's designated as a lucky fruit, and then each Yoshi has a favorite fruit, so you get more points for those. So it's similar, but a little bit scaled back because it's like a 2.5D kind of thing where they're 3D graphics but in a 2D environment. The game itself it's not terribly difficult until you get about halfway through and you've got a massive vertical level and it's hard to see what's below you if you fall. And one of the things about this one is you choose your Yoshi at the beginning of each stage, and if that Yoshi is defeated or falls into a pit, it gets grabbed by a bunch of Magic Koopas and taken to some castle thing, and that Yoshi is now unavailable to you. I don't know if you can eventually get them back. I didn't come across that while I was playing.
That's quite harsh.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a good game. I wasn't as impressed with this as I was with Yoshi's Island when I played it. It's fine. It still has kind of that same crafty aesthetic. It's designed to look like a pop-up storybook, hence the title. The game's worth checking out if you have access to it through Switch Online or any of the various methods you could access it. I would definitely say of the two, Yoshi's Island is the one to check out.
I may go back to Yoshi's Island and try and get a little bit further. I think I did about 5 or 6 levels, and I'd like to see what some of the other power-ups and that do.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the other thing is Yoshi's Story is definitely shorter than Yoshi's Island. Yoshi's Story has, I think, 6 pages, which is what their courses are, and I got through 2.5 of them, so it's definitely shorter than Yoshi's Island. But yeah, so to avoid talking in circles, we'll just kind of wrap that there. Definitely check out Yoshi's Island if it sounds appealing to you. If you enjoy Mario platforming, it will almost certainly be a good time. But yeah, so we'll take a quick break and then go on to our other game.
Okay.
Alright, so for our other game, the past 2 episodes of the podcast, we've been talking about Dino Crisis, specifically about it being released on GOG and included in their preservation project, and we decided to put our money where our mouth is and cover Dino Crisis. I picked this up on GOG. It's only $10, which is a fantastic price for it. Most of my playtime was on the PlayStation version, but I did pick up the GOG version. How did you play this?
Weirdly enough, pretty much the same way. I did pick it up on GOG. I picked up there's a bundle with Dino Crisis 1 and 2 that I picked up. Started to play it, and then I decided, you know what, I want to play this on the TV, and I do actually have Dino Crisis for the PS1, so I just played the original on the TV.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's how I played it. It's great that it's on GOG for people who don't have access to the original, and there are improvements to that version, which make things a little bit better. But I just want to play it on the big TV. So I just stuck the PS1 disc into my PS3 and did it that way.
I know with the GOG version, I think there's like an option to play the American version or the Japanese version. Like they're called different something else, but that's essentially what it boils down to. But yeah, so the Dino Crisis was made, I think, after Resident Evil 2.
Yeah, it contains a lot of elements that are very similar to what you see in, especially Resident Evil 3. So it was probably more like concurrently with 3.
I mean, well, from what I'm seeing, it was made by the same team that made Resident Evil, so...
Yeah. It definitely has kind of like a very similar feel to it. It is essentially Resident Evil with dinosaurs.
Well, and that actually does make a difference, because the way it ends up playing out is when you play Resident Evil, the zombies are usually slow. So a lot of it comes down to figuring out what you're going to do, and you have some time to figure things out and react. The dinosaurs are much faster than the zombies.
Yeah.
So it's one of those where you should already have your stuff ready to go before they show up. And I think there is enough here that is different from Resident Evil to justify it being its own game.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
I mean, we've talked this up for 2 episodes, and like I said, we put our money where our mouth is, because this game is actually very good. I would say Resident Evil is probably better.
Oh, for me, definitely, yeah.
This is by no means a bad game. I wanted to talk about the first 10 minutes of this game. Actually, not even the first 5 minutes, because the first 5 to 10 minutes are cutscene. But as far as I know, that cutscene can be skipped at any time. It's only the in-engine scenes that you have to watch.
Yeah.
But the first 5 minutes of gameplay, I think, are fantastic, because it is one of the best hidden tutorials I've seen in games. So, for anyone who hasn't played it, you start. Your team has just gone through a door in this gate. One of your team members has gone into the facility to try and get into the security system. Your squad leader is nearby. And you start right next to that door that you've come in. Directly in front of you is the path inside. If you go down that path, the team leader pipes up and says, hey, the other guy can handle the inside on his own. And between the door you came in and the entrance to the facility, there's a path to the left, and that's where your squad leader is. And you see him looking at a rip in the fence, and there's a little bit of banter between the two of them, between your character and the squad leader, and then he starts examining some shell casings on the ground. And you have this very small area to work in. It's basically a hallway with a couple of additional hallways attached to it. And your gaze is immediately drawn to the back of the screen because there's a spinning item back there. So you get closer to it, you see that it turns, and you find a door, and that door tells you you need this key to open it. Well, the only other place you have to go at this point is a door right next to the squad leader. You go in there, and you see some boxes, some shelves, and there's a key that you can pick up. And that key is almost like the key that the gate said you needed, but not exactly. The gate said you needed the B1 key.
B1, yeah.
The one you find is the ground level key. So it's not the key you need for that gate, but it immediately establishes that you need to pay attention to item descriptions, because there will be differences. And it's not like Resident Evil where you have the model of the key that's got these distinct shape. It's just different text. And then the other thing you can do in this room is there's a shelf that's in the way, but you can push it, and then there's an item beyond it that you can pick up. And that's it for the explorable area that you have access to. So the only other place you can possibly go is back the way you came, which then starts the scene to progress to the next part of the game. And I just think this is such a good... It's a good controlled environment to learn how to navigate, learn how it handles items, learn what you can do. And there's no combat, so you don't have to worry about dying in this section. And when the combat is introduced, it's introduced in a way that you have a little bit more space to work with. But when I was playing this, I was really impressed with this opening bit and how it taught you so much about the game in such a small amount of time.
Yeah, it is a really well designed opening. Certainly better designed than at least the first Resident Evil game. Like especially Resident Evil 2 puts you in the middle of a group of zombies at the start. So it does kind of it doesn't really let you get your bearings, which in that game is it kind of works. But yeah, it like you say, it is well designed, and it's nice to have that little bit of breathing room at the start just to get you used to how things work.
Yeah, and I really liked that, because it was, especially if you're not used to tank controls, it's a very small area for you to learn how they operate and get used to turning and navigating with those controls. I really liked that, and that's why I wanted to talk about that specifically, because I thought that was a very good opening.
Yeah, definitely. And you do eventually, like you said, get into a combat section, which one of the first flaws of this game, kind of, the handgun you get at the start is useless. If you feel like you need to kill an enemy with that handgun, you're better off running away, because it will take so long to kill something with that. Until later on you get better bullets for it. But at the start it is useless. That is one thing that does differ from Resident Evil, where you are going to be using your handgun for most of the game. And for this one to give you such a weak handgun, it did bug me a bit, but it doesn't take that long before you get a shotgun, so it's not that much of an issue.
And I don't know if Resident Evil 2 has this mechanic, but the mix mechanic...
Resident Evil 3 does.
Resident Evil 3 does? Okay.
Kind of. With gunpowder, you can make different kind of bullets by mixing different types of gunpowder.
Actually, wait, now I think about it, the first Resident Evil had the different colored herbs, didn't it?
Yeah. All of the Resident Evils have got the herbs, but in terms of kind of like a more complex system, which you can make different things from, it's closer to the gunpowder system from Resident Evil 3.
Okay, because that I found. Once you get the shotgun and start picking up items, that mix system kind of makes up for it, because you can just make a whole bunch of sleep darts, pop a raptor with a sleep dart, and run away.
I actually hated that mix system. I find it so unintuitive. I really, really couldn't get to grips with it at all.
At first, I was confused. I didn't know how it worked. But once I tinkered with it a bit, I kind of figured out, okay, this will enhance this will enhance this. And, I mean, the ultimate goal of mixing is to either make the auto-revive item or the poison dart that kills in one shot.
Yeah.
I thought it was okay. I'm sure it was done better in later games.
Yeah, it's not as convoluted in Resident Evil 3. You basically have 3 different types of gunpowder, and you just mix them to create different types. Whereas this is more. It doesn't explain it very well at all, and it's difficult to explain how it actually works.
Right. Because there's 3 levels of med pack. And then within those 3 levels, there are 3 levels. So you've got small, medium, and large, but then you've got regular, plus, and plus of each. And adding different things to them will change them in different ways. Like there's anesthetic you can get, there's recovery aid you can get, and then there's the hemostats, which stop bleeding. And like each one will increase things in different ways, but yeah, you really have to fiddle with it a lot to get a hold of how the system works. Now, tangentially connected to that is a system I do like, which are the emergency boxes, which are these boxes on the wall that have basically emergency supplies, but you have to find plugs to unlock them. And basically, like, if you find a green box, you can put stuff in it, and then you can pull those out from any green box that you find later. I liked those. I thought that was a good system, especially when you're working with limited inventory, to not waste items.
Yeah, definitely. It's not quite as good as the chest system in Resident Evil, but it does work, and it does add a kind of like bit of strategy to it. The good thing is in this game is that weapons and key items don't take inventory slots.
Yes.
So you can have as many of those as you want. It's just bullets and recovery items and mix items.
Yeah, so that does help a lot, especially because, much like Resident Evil, you'll be picking up keys, and there's the key discs, but then there's also like pass keys and ID cards and things like that. And those don't take up your inventory space.
So what did you think about that pass card system, the ID card system?
The system where you rewrite ID cards?
Yes.
I think it's a good idea. I'm sure it could have been more refined. I don't think it's a bad idea. I think it's probably it could do with some better explanation, I guess.
It's not too difficult to work out, but one of the main issues with it is the lack of a memo system in this game. So you get a lot of codes given to you to kind of like flash these cards and for like various different devices that you need to open different doors and stuff like that. You need to put in like certain codes that you find in memos and stuff like that. I hope you've got a pen and paper handy, because there is no way you can access that information from the game without going back to that memo again. It's not like Resident Evil, which records every memo that you pick up and you can refer back to. And that makes things needlessly complicated. I'm not sure why they didn't put that in.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that because I tend to forget things a lot. So there should be some kind of way to track things in game, and it's especially important that you read, the memos that you find with these codes on them. It's not only important to get the code, but to get the right room for the code, because it'll say, this code for the safe in this room, but if you go to the wrong room because you didn't pay attention to which room it said, then you're not going to get it open. Because I did that. I got a code and mistakenly tried to enter it in the wrong room the first time.
Yeah, and the rooms aren't labelled on the map, which is that's standard for the Resident Evil games as well. But the main thing about this game, I mean, I'm not just going to complain about this game, the whole thing. Like, I do enjoy this game, but I want to get my nitpicks out of the way. All of this game takes place in this facility, and a lot of the locations look very much the same. Whereas in the Resident Evil games, like in the first Resident Evil, you've got 3 separate areas. You've got the mansion, you've got the outhouse, and you've got the lab. And all of those locations have kind of like unique features in certain parts of it, where you can look at that and say, okay, I know where that is, I know where that is. In here, you're just looking at metal corridors.
Yeah.
And it is very, very, very easy to lose your way, even with the map, because most of the rooms look the same, and there isn't much in the way of distinctive architecture to help you place yourself at a glance. So that doesn't help when you're trying to kind of like find specific rooms.
Right, and I'll be honest, I completely forgot that I even had the map most of the time. So if I needed to go to a specific room, I would mostly just try to remember where it was and end up wandering around. The big nitpick that I had was I feel like some of the controls should have been explained better. So on the PlayStation version, you go into the control menu and you see the control layouts, and you can pick between a couple of different options, which are not very diverse. So there's there's only a couple of different options to pick from, but they only give you the controls for the face buttons. They don't tell you about the shoulder buttons. So it took me a while to figure out that you hold R1 to ready the gun. So the first couple of times I ran into dinosaurs, I couldn't fight them because I had no idea how to bring the gun up, because the game just didn't have any indication of that.
If you've not played the games that come before it, then yeah, I can see that kind of like being an issue. Like for me it's instinctive because the Resident Evil games do that, but if you don't really have that experience, then you're not going to know.
Yeah, like, and I've played Resident Evil for the podcast, but that was a long time ago, and yeah, I feel like that should have been explained better. Now, it may be that that's explained better, that the control menu in the GOG version actually shows all the controls. But like I said, I did most of my time on the PlayStation version.
But yeah, in terms of general gameplay, it does play very similar to Resident Evils. And like you said, dinosaurs are a lot faster, but they are generally easy to run past. Like I didn't do a huge amount of combat, like one or two kind of like tight corridors where I could see I needed to go back and forth quite a bit. I would kill the enemies in there, most of the enemies I would run past. So you have like the standard raptors. Those are the enemies that you're going to be finding most in the game. You get kind of like a more advanced version of them later on. But anyone who has played the Heart of Thorns expansion for Guild Wars 2 knows about the pocket raptors. Now, there isn't a single person who has played Guild Wars 2 in Heart of Thorns and hasn't been absolutely decimated by a pack of pocket raptors. Because often you're going into the start of that expansion probably not with the best gear, and there's a group of kind of like half a dozen tiny little raptors that will just attack you all at once, and they completely fuck you up. So when I went into a corridor in this game and saw half a dozen tiny little raptors around this corpse, I panicked. I was like, oh god, no. And they are exactly like the pocket raptors in Guild Wars 2. That kind of made me laugh quite a bit. I never actually fought them. I just ran past them every time. So I don't know how hard they are to actually bring down. But it's funny that kind of like immediately popped into my mind when I saw them.
That is kind of funny.
Because yeah, they're kind of like a meme at this point, that you've got to watch out for pocket raptors when you're in Heart of Thorns. Like once you're geared, they're not a problem. But yeah, every single player has been completely decimated by those pocket raptors.
Oh, well, that's something to look forward to.
Yeah.
So I know there's the regular raptors, there's the armored ones late in the game. There's the tiny raptors, and then I think there's some flying ones.
Oh, you've got pterodons, pterodactyls.
Yeah, pterodactyls that are that basically just function as flying raptors. And then, much like Jurassic Park, the one T-Rex.
Yeah, which is actually I don't want to say the easiest enemy to kill, because obviously it pops up like throughout the game, but there are kind of like boss fights on this T-Rex throughout the game, and none of them are difficult. They're all like really easy.
Yeah, just shoot it in the mouth 3 times and it runs away.
Yeah. And there is actually one point where he gets knocked out, and Regina, the character you're playing as, can like see that it's still breathing. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, it's right in front of you. It's completely unconscious. Kill it.
Yeah,
maybe?
like stick your shotgun in its mouth and keep firing until it stops moving.
I don't understand why she just leaves it there.
I do think so. The T-Rex gets a pretty impactful introduction in the opening cutscene, where it chomps one of your squad members. But I think the first time that Regina sees it is also a very impactful scene, because it's you've just opened this box and you turn around and it just bursts through the window and it's like zoomed up on it and everything. I thought that was a very good jump scare moment.
It comes after one of the funniest parts of the game for me, because you're in a room with this researcher guy who's nearly dead, and as he's dying, this conversation takes place. He says, "Here, take this." What is it? I don't know. And that just, there's it reminded me of a scene from The Simpsons where like Homer is trying to get access to this building by pretending that he's Mr. Burns, and he says kind of like, "Hello, I'm Mr. Burns." "Okay, Mr. Burns, what is your first name?" "I don't know." And it just reminded me of that, and I just found it really funny. Like The guy does say afterwards, it's vital, but that's it. That's the only information you get. But it just really made me laugh that bit. And then the T-Rex pops in and eats him.
Yeah, well, and what's worse is the thing that he gives you is a key card for the box that's on the wall behind him. Like, how do you not know? You're in the room with the thing. So, how do you feel about the? It takes a little while to get to this in the game, but you get to the point where your squad leader will suggest a course of action, and the other squad mate will suggest a course of action. You have to choose which one you're going to follow. How do you feel about that system?
Well, that system is why it reminds me a bit more of Resident Evil 3, because that has points like that. When you are attacked by Nemesis, you have kind of like a choice of options you can do to either run away or to fight it. And this kind of like I do actually like it. It gives you kind of like a little more of like a branching path narrative, and it like the choices you make in those sections will kind of like affect your ending as well. I've only ever gotten the one ending, but I know that it does kind of like affect that ending. So I do like those moments that you can choose to like carry on with the mission, or you can go save your comrade, or whatever the choice is. And I like it. It adds a bit more dynamism to the story.
Yeah. So from what I understand, the basic divergence points for the narrative are: how do you escape the island, and who escapes with you? Basically, how many of your squad survive, and a lot of your choices will affect that. I like the system. I didn't get all the way through to see all the permutations, but I do like that idea, and I like that there's kind of a distinct character for the two NPCs that are involved. The squad leader is purely focused on the mission, whereas the other guy is, we got to get the heck out of here.
Yeah, I generally went with Rick rather than Gale, just because it just made more sense to me than just blindly kind of like following the orders of this guy to complete the mission.
Right.
And just made more sense there, but I'm sure the other path is kind of like decent as well.
Yeah, I mean, from what I've seen, there's interesting things to be seen on, with all the different choices.
I'm not entirely sure how impactful all of those choices are. Like, maybe one or two of them will generally lead to the same outcome. But having the illusion of choice is nice.
And I do know that for most of those decision points, once you choose a path, it locks you in, and if you try to go follow the other person, it stops you. But from what I understand, with the last choice, you can get a secret ending if you choose one and go the other direction. I didn't get that far, but I heard about that from some of my research.
Well, so kind of like I'm assuming there are like multiple endings. Like I forget what number ending that I got, but it's an interesting way to do a secret ending. Just kind of like do something completely different at the end than what you said you were going to do.
Right. And especially because it locks you into those choices for the previous choices. So, if you say you're following Gale, you can't follow Rick, but then at the end, that's exactly what you need to do. So it's an interesting misdirect. I feel like in terms of keeping a secret ending secret, it's great. I'm not sure if there's any kind of hint that that's what you need to do.
No, I didn't see any hints to that at all. As far as I'm aware, I got the same ending that I did when I was a kid. I will say, I have no idea as a kid how I got through this without a guide. Because I definitely needed to follow a guide at like several points this time round. But I know that I did it without one as a kid. So God knows how I managed that. It gets convoluted at the end. There is a lot of back and forth. There is a lot of one side of the facility has an item you need to pick up, and then you need to go and rewrite the key card and then go back again, and there's a lot of that back and forth thing, which kind of frustrated me towards the end. I do feel that the first third of the game is the best part of the game, and then it kind of tails off towards the end. I just didn't find it as interesting at the end as I did at the start.
Yeah, and that kind of makes sense to me, because in the beginning you've got a lot more of the intrigue of, what happened here, why are there dinosaurs and all of this. And once you get the answers, it's less about figuring things out and more about just running around doing the thing. And like you said, you'll have to do something on one end of the complex and go clear to the other side.
Yeah, and the reason why there are dinosaurs is fucking stupid.
Yeah, it is kind of dumb.
It's essentially they opened a portal and time travel happened and dinosaurs came through the portal. It's stupid.
They made a big oops.
Yeah, it is absolutely dumb. One of the things that kind of amused me is do you know where this game is set?
I actually have no idea.
Because the game very aggressively will not tell you where it's set. At one point, the first time you meet Dr. Kirk and Gale is introducing the team to him, he says, "We are representatives of your nation's government." Doesn't say what the nation is. I mean, everyone's speaking with an American accent, but they are representatives of his nation's government. That is all you get as far as setting. And whenever kind of setting is mentioned later on, it's always our nation, your nation needs this energy thing.
Because I know they say the name of the island. It's Ibis Island, I think. They say the name of the island, and then the team is... Let me just pull this up here. Secret Operation Raid Team. But yeah, you're right. Now I think about it, they did not ever say... I mean, it feels like they're American, but I mean, we're also talking about a game developed by Japanese developers, so
yeah, it just seemed funny that they explicitly say your nation rather than any specific place.
Right.
It's like they wanted to call attention to it.
The only thing I think off the top of my head is maybe to make localization easier, where instead of having the specific nation, it just it's just a direct translation. Although it's not like they have to worry about lip syncing in this game.
No, because there isn't any.
I don't know. That is pretty funny. And we talked a little bit about this off microphone, but this game kind of has Resident Evil same serious with funny moments feel, but you were saying that Dino Crisis feels more like it's trying to take itself seriously, whereas Resident Evil knew it was being silly.
Yeah, I still feel that a lot of the silliness in Resident Evil was by accident, but they were also trying to pay homage to B-movies.
Mm-hmm.
But so they do have a hokey quality, but I don't believe they were trying to be as comedic as the end result ended up being.
Well, and some of that may be the localization, because I feel like Jill Sandwich wasn't in the original script.
Well, the thing is with the Resident Evil games, I don't think there is actually a Japanese voice cast. I believe, as far as I'm aware, that it was released with the American voice cast with subtitles in Japan.
Oh, interesting.
Same as the Silent Hill games. They only had like the American voice acting.
Interesting. That I did not know that.
I'm pretty certain. Like I would have to double check that, but I don't believe that there's a Japanese voice cast.
Huh. So that kind of is interesting to me, because this is off topic generally, but the Kingdom Hearts series was originally developed in Japan in Japanese, but then the versions released in the West had more content, or it's like the versions released in the West had a little bit more content, were a little bit better. So then when they made the final mix versions in Japan, it was still the American voice acting, just with Japanese subtitles. So Haley Joel Osment is much more known as the voice of Sora even in Japan than he is than the actual Japanese voice actor, because so many are still playing with the American voices. That's very interesting. I know. I always find those kind of quirks interesting. I don't know. That just makes some of the lines in Resident Evil more confusing. I need to go back to that game.
It was similar kind of thing for Silent Hill. Like the American voice actors were the ones who did the motion capture as well. So it was only ever American voice, because they were trying to like emulate like this Americana vibe for the Silent Hill games.
Right. It was specifically supposed to be a town in middle America.
Yeah, and the only Japanese voices in that are in the dog ending, where James says his lines in Japanese with subtitles for the dog ending, and in a nod to that, in the Silent Hill 2 remake, which was made by a Polish team, they have the English voice actor doing those lines in Polish for the dog ending with English subtitles.
Interesting.
But it is actually the English voice actors that did them.
That is fascinating.
That was like a nice nod having that in Polish just for that one ending.
Mm-hmm. So one other thing I wanted to touch on is, how do you feel about the key system, where you'd have to find like 2 discs and then kind of solve a word puzzle to open certain doors?
This is the reason I needed a guide. I hated that system. Like the codes themselves, you can generally guess just by looking at at the screen, because you can your brain can kind of make out a word from the letters before you've actually taken out the letters that you need to. But it's still a pain in the arse. It's more a pain in the arse for having to find the two keys to open the doors.
Right, because you can't even try without having both keys.
No.
Because the passwords don't change, and they're always connected to the room. So, like the room you need to go into for the stabilizer, the password is stabilizer.
While you're on that, did you actually notice that before you take the letters out, it actually says Saturday Night Fever?
Oh no, I didn't notice.
When you go in when you do in the stabilizer room, before you take those letters out, it says Saturday Night Fever.
I did not notice that. But like now, what's interesting is the first one. It's like the chief something or other, and like the password that I got was head, but from what I understand, there's some versions where that password is chief. So I'm wondering if that's the difference between the Japanese and the English versions.
I don't remember which one mine was. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, head rings a bell.
I mean, if we were both playing the PlayStation version, then it was probably the same thing. But I know one of the videos I watched, they said that the password was chief, and I was like, wait a minute. But they were playing the GOG version, so they may have been playing on the Japanese version. But
most of them are kind of like the laboratory door is laboratory.
Yeah.
Stabilizer room is stabilizer. It is. You can guess them. You just need to get those keys. And like I said, as a kid, I have got no idea how I got through without a guide, because that was the most frustrating part for me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I find myself like both really enjoying this game and also seeing clear areas where it can improve. Because like some of the puzzle aspects I really enjoy, but you can get those better in Resident Evil just because of the memo system. But then, like I said, there's areas like that intro that are very well designed, and you can clearly see that they had a good vision for what they wanted to do here.
Yeah, I just think there's fumbles along the way. For me, it ends up being kind of like a 7 out of 10 kind of game. Mm-hmm. With some changes, it could have been 9 out of 10.
Well, and the vast majority of the scores at the time agree with you.
But it is a solid game, absolutely. Definitely check it out, especially now that it's really easy to get.
Yeah. And, as we've said in the past, it is absolutely worth supporting GOG's preservation project. It is, it's fantastic that they're doing this, and it's important work that, I paid full price for this, and I have no regrets on that, because, I want to see gaming history preserved, and I want to see, good archival.
Yeah, it just needs to be supported by the major developers.
Yeah.
Obviously, they've got a good working relationship with Capcom. Mm-hmm. But if you see what went down with Blizzard, where they asked them to take down, I believe, the Warcraft ones that they had on the preservation project before Blizzard's remasters came out, some companies are still not interested in kind of like that kind of preservation.
Well, yeah, I mean, we know Blizzard made it so that anytime you connect to BattleNet, your version of Warcraft 3 becomes the remastered version, even if you don't want it.
Yeah, Yeah, you can't play the original Warcraft 3. Yeah, it's stupid.
Yeah, unless you have a physical disc.
I do actually have a physical disc of Warcraft 3.
Which I'm surprised that they haven't tried to get GOG to take down Hellfire, because Hellfire wasn't made by Blizzard. They have never acknowledged it. But Diablo and Hellfire is still how it's marketed on GOG, how it's sold. And it's in the Preservation Project.
Hopefully they continue to do good work, and hopefully the big publishers will kind of like see the importance of it.
Mm-hmm. I really like that they have... It's not just the really old games.
No, because they did Shadow of War.
Yeah, Shadow of Mordor.
Yeah.
They did Shadow of Mordor. They've got, I think, at least the first 2 Witcher games.
But that's their parent company anyway. So they're always going to have them. Yeah.
Well, that's a good point. But, like, there's, the Fallout games, all the way from the first games up to New Vegas are in there, which, I mean, you can argue whether New Vegas can run on PC in any capacity because of the bugs, but they've got Morrowind on there.
Arena and Daggerfall as well from Elder Scrolls.
The original Alone in the Dark games, Wing Commander. Yeah, there's a ton of stuff in here, and there's a ton of the Lego games as well. Those are much more recent. And then obviously things like, Deus Ex and the original Resident Evils, things that are a big deal that people just aren't able to play in most cases. Like I said at the top, we went on about this the past couple of episodes, and specifically about the preservation program. I still 100% support the idea. That's why I bought the game at full price, even if I didn't end up playing it all the way through on GOG. I still 100% want to support this idea, and I hope that they are able to keep going and do more good preservation work.
Absolutely.
So with that being said, I think we'll go ahead and wrap up. The end result is check out Dino Crisis. It is $10 on GOG, very easy to get a hold of. Or you can get the bundle with both Dino Crisis games. Yeah, absolutely check it out. If you like Resident Evil, you will at least get some enjoyment out of Dino Crisis.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll go ahead and take a quick break and then come back to finish up.
Okay.
Here. Take this.
What's this for?
I don't know.
Alright, so that is our dinosaur episode. It took some twists and turns that we weren't expecting, but I think overall we had some good stuff to work with this episode.
Yeah, definitely. And we got a trial run of our MMO episode there as well. Because we talked about MMOs for about half an hour, but
yeah, that'll that happens. How many times did we do the Final Fantasy episode before we did the Final Fantasy episode? But yeah, so the MMO episode will not be our next episode, but it's something we'll think about and something we'll get into once we have some more ideas and get some distance from having talked about it so much.
Yeah.
But we will return. Just should be here in the next couple of months. And until then, all that's left to do is say goodbye. So goodbye.
Goodbye.
Hello, my name is Mr. Burns. I believe you have a letter for me.
Okay, Mr. Burns. What's your first name?
I don't know.